Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into a topic that I find super fascinating: women warriors throughout history.
A topic with endless intrigue, that's for sure.
We've got a top 10 list we're working off of, but I really want to go deeper than just like names and dates, like what made these women such powerful figures?
I think that's the really interesting part,
Right.
right? They weren't all warriors in like the typical
Yeah,
sense.
exactly.
Leaders, strategists, rebels, even a pirate.
Okay, so let's start with Queen Boudica. She led the Iceni tribe against Roman-occupied Britain. But wasn't it more than just her own tribe that she was fighting for?
Yeah, she actually managed to unite a whole bunch of different tribes against the Romans.
Wow.
And a lot of them were rivals.
Really?
Yeah, so that shows you how good of a leader she was. Like, she could get everyone on the same page to face a common enemy.
That must have taken some serious charisma, though. I can't imagine trying to bring all those different groups together, especially against the mighty Roman Empire.
It really shows you how well she understood strategy and human nature. She knew they had to be united to stand any chance against Rome.
That's really interesting. I wonder what her tactics were. Was it pure personality? Or did she use more subtle strategies to get everyone on board?
That's a great question. It's hard to say for sure. The historical accounts are a bit sketchy.
Ah, right.
But we do know that she was fiercely determined, and she used alliances and built on the tribe's resentment of Roman rule, channeled that anger and desire for freedom.
So she was tapping into something bigger than just military might.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and I mean, her rebellion wasn't just a little uprising, was it? She presented a real challenge to Roman authority.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Boudica's forces did some serious damage to the Romans, sacking settlements, challenging their military. For a while, she was a genuine threat to their control in Britain.
A genuine threat. That's wild.
It is.
Okay, well, speaking of challenging empires, let's jump ahead a few centuries to Joan of Arc. Always found her story incredible. Oh, it's a classic. The peasant girl who becomes a military leader in the Hundred Years' War.
Mhm.
Just the idea of a woman leading troops in that era is remarkable.
Right. And she didn't just lead them, she led them to victory. The Siege of Orleans, for example, a major turning point in the war.
Right. Her impact on French morale was huge. She had this unwavering faith, incredible courage, and real tactical insights. Inspired the troops.
So it wasn't just brute strength, there was this whole spiritual dimension to her leadership that really resonated with people.
Absolutely.
Makes you think about all the different ways that leadership can manifest, huh?
It really does.
Yeah.
It also makes you wonder how much of her success was due to her own abilities and how much was because people believed she was divinely inspired.
Oh, interesting. Like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right. Did she have this natural talent, or was it the belief in her that made the difference?
Okay, wow. Lot to think about there. But before we get too lost in that, let's move on to another queen who took on an empire. Queen Thamyris of the Massagetae. Have to admit, I wasn't familiar with her before this list.
Yeah, she's a bit more obscure, definitely shrouded in legend.
Okay.
But she led the Massageta, which was this nomadic group in Central Asia, against Cyrus the Great of Persia in the 6th century BC.
Cyrus the Great. Now, he was a pretty powerful ruler, not someone you'd want to mess with, I'd imagine.
Nope, definitely not. But Thamyris, she defended her territory and actually defeated him in battle.
Wow, really?
Yet there are a few different versions of the story, some pretty gruesome, but the fact is she repelled this massive Persian invasion.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah,
So what our list calls her warrior aspect is a mix of fierce independence and military cunning, right? To stand up to Cyrus, you'd have to be both brave and smart.
definitely. And it's important to remember context of nomadic warfare. Thamyris and her people, they were highly mobile, skilled in the tactics of the steppe. A larger army wouldn't have intimidated them.
So she used the terrain to her advantage. That's something we've seen with a lot of these women, using what they know and understanding this situation to outmaneuver their opponents.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that strategic thinking. They weren't just reacting. They were assessing their strengths, their weaknesses, and then using that knowledge to shape the battle.
I like that. Shaping the battle is a good way to put it. Speaking of which, let's talk about Tridethitrin, also known as Lady Trick, who fought against the Chinese Eastern Wu dynasty in 3rd century Vietnam, another leader of a resistance movement, and her story's got a lot of legends about strength and bravery.
Yeah, she's become almost mythical in Vietnamese history, depicted as this superhuman figure capable of these incredible feats, riding an elephant into battle, dual-wielding swords.
That sounds epic, like a superhero.
It does. But those legends, they serve the purpose, right? They inspired and rallied people.
Oh, right.
Her image became a symbol of Vietnamese resistance. Whether the stories are totally true or not, they helped bring people together in the fight for independence.
Right. So even beyond any specific battle, her story, the symbolism, that was a powerful weapon in itself.
Definitely. It really is amazing how these stories of resistance just transcend time and place. Boudica in Britain, Trahu Teet in Vietnam.
Right. Like the fight against oppression is a human story.
It is.
So our next warrior, Nakanoto Keiko, she kind of exemplifies that in a really interesting way.
Oh, definitely.
A skilled swordswoman fighting in 19th century Japan, the Boshin War. And get this, she was an Onimusha, a female warrior in a society that was, dominated by male samurai.
Yeah, her story really makes you question those assumptions we have about women in Japanese history.
So sure.
She wasn't just fighting, she was leading a whole unit of female warriors. Imagine the courage that took to defy those expectations and then lead others in a war as chaotic as the Boshin War.
I know. Just picturing these women charging into battle, they're Naginata ready. It's pretty amazing. But was she actually a great warrior, or is there some, myth-making going on with her story?
Well, there's always some embellishment, especially with legendary figures. But the fact that she was leading a unit, that suggests real skill and training.
Right. She had to have had some serious abilities to survive in a war as brutal as that one.
Exactly. These women weren't just symbols. They had real skills, faced real danger.
Right. Their stories are more than just, like, fairy tales.
Yeah, definitely more than fairy tales. More like examples of courage and determination when the odds are stacked against you.
And sometimes those odds were stacked against them not just on the battlefield, but in their own societies, too.
Exactly.
Which brings us to another warrior who might have challenged those societal norms in a really big way, Miyamoto Musashi. And now, this is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah, Musashi's story is definitely a fascinating one.
Because there's a theory that Musashi, one of the most famous swordsmen in Japanese history, might have been a woman disguised as a man.
It's a theory that's been debated for a while.
Wait, the legendary Miyamoto Musashi, undefeated in like 60 duels, might have been a woman. That just changes everything. Is there any evidence for this, or is it just speculation?
It's tough to say for sure. Records from that time are often incomplete, especially when it comes to gender. But there are some details about Musashi's life and writings that some historians point to.
It makes you wonder, if it's true, why would Musashi choose to live as a man? To survive in a male-dominated world? Or was there something else going on?
It's a mystery. And it shows you how much history might be hidden or lost. How many other stories are out there that we just don't know about?
It's a good point. We have to be careful about the stories we think we know.
We do.
Okay, well, speaking of challenging assumptions, our next warrior, Grace O'Malley. You might know her as Granuaile, the Pirate Queen, another woman who broke the mold.
Oh, for sure. She ruled the seas off Ireland in the 16th century when most women were, expected to stay home and raise a family.
But not Grace. She was commanding ships, raiding English vessels, protecting her territory. A true rebel.
Absolutely. She constantly battled both the elements and the English who were trying to control her.
So what do you think? Was she just in it for the power and wealth, or was there more to it?
Probably a bit of both. She inherited her position as chieftain, so there was definitely duty there to protect her clan. But she also had this incredibly independent spirit.
Like she refused to be controlled.
Yeah, she refused to bow to anyone, whether it was the English crown or just society's expectations.
Kind of reminds me of Boudica, both challenging the power structures of their time.
Interesting connection.
It seems like no matter the time or the place, the fight for autonomy is a constant theme.
You're right, it does seem that way. And that fight can take different forms.
Yeah, like Boudica and Grace O'Malley led open rebellions.
Right.
But others, like Nzinga of Ndongo and Matamba, used different tactics, a more subtle mix of resistance.
Nzinga is a fascinating case.
She ruled in what's now Angola during the 17th century, and she's known for resisting Portuguese colonization for decades.
Yeah, decades.
Shows you that strength doesn't always mean brute force.
Exactly. Nzinga was a brilliant strategist and diplomat, a master of politics. She knew that to resist a power like Portugal, she had to be smart. Formed alliances, played different sides against each other, exploited every weakness she could find.
So her quote-unquote warrior aspect was more about cunning and adaptation, playing the long game to protect her people and her kingdom.
Exactly.
Must have been incredibly challenging.
Oh, absolutely. Navigating all that political intrigue while also facing a colonial power.
It shows real resilience. She understood how the world worked.
And she knew that to survive, you had to be flexible, always ready to adapt.
It's pretty cool how these women from different cultures and times show us that there are so many ways to lead.
It really challenges that idea that there's only one way to be a leader or to be strong.
Right. It can be about inspiring people, sure, but it can also be about strategy, political skills, making tough decisions.
Exactly. There's no one-size-fits-all approach.
And sometimes it's just about defying expectations, forging your own path. And our next warrior, Lyudmila Pavlichenko, she did just that.
Oh, absolutely.
A Soviet sniper who fought on the Eastern Front during World War II. Her story is one of incredible skill under some of the worst pressure imaginable.
Imagine it. The chaos of World War II, millions of lives lost. And then there's Lyudmila Pavlichenko, a symbol of Soviet resistance. Her skill with a rifle, striking fear into the enemy.
I can't even imagine the focus and discipline it would take to be a sniper in that kind of environment. What made her so good? Was it natural talent or was there something more?
She was an incredible markswoman.
Yeah.
Credited with over 300 confirmed kills, the deadliest female sniper in history.
Wow.
But it wasn't just about being able to shoot. It was about patience, observation, knowing how to blend in, understanding the psychology of war.
So like a combination of physical skill and mental toughness.
For sure. To stay calm under that pressure, to wait for the right moment. And her impact went beyond the battlefield. She became a hero in the Soviet Union, this symbol of female empowerment.
Right, she challenged all those gender stereotypes, showed that women could not just participate in war, but excel in roles that were usually seen as men's roles.
Exactly.
It's a reminder that even in something as horrific as war, there can be these moments of social change. Like, it forces people to rethink their assumptions and see the potential in everyone, regardless of gender.
You're absolutely right. War can change everything.
It's amazing how each of these women achieved greatness in such different ways.
Right.
Military strategists to sharpshooters, they really challenge our ideas about what a warrior can be.
Absolutely. And their stories show us that there are so many different ways to be a leader, so many ways to be strong.
Speaking of leadership, our last warrior, Rani Lakshmibai, she's a symbol of resistance against colonial rule.
Oh yeah, her story is incredible.
She was the Queen of Jhansi in 19th century India at a time when the British Empire was really expanding its power.
Right, so like a lot of the women we've talked about, she had this huge empire to contend with.
So what made her such a strong figure in that resistance?
She was famous for her courage, incredible equestrian skills, and she was totally dedicated to protecting her kingdom.
Wow.
When the British East India Company tried to take over Kansi, Lakshmibai refused to back down. She fought back, leading her troops against a much larger force.
It's hard to imagine, leading your people into battle like that. What was her fighting style like? Was she more of a traditional military leader, or did she use different tactics?
Yeah, she was definitely a skilled horsewoman and a great sword fighter. That was part of her training and the warrior culture where she came from.
Right.
But she also understood strategy and alliances. She knew that to stand up to the British, she had to bring different groups in India together, create this united front.
So kind of like Boudica bringing those tribes together to fight the Romans.
Exactly. It seems like that's a recurring theme, right?
Yeah.
Uniting people under common cause when the odds are against you.
It's a powerful strategy.
It is. It shows real understanding of how power works. They knew that individual strength is great, but working together, that's how you challenge a bigger power.
When we look back at all these women, it's really incredible how different their approaches were. Some were amazing strategists, others were inspiring leaders, some just broke all the rules to create their own destiny.
They really challenge us to broaden our definition of what it means to be a warrior.
Exactly. It's not just about fighting on a battlefield.
Yeah. Their stories make us rethink what strength and courage really mean. Those qualities aren't limited to war or to men. We see them in so many different forms throughout history.
So what can we learn from all these amazing women warriors? What can we take away from their stories and apply to our own lives?
I think they teach us that resilience, determination, fighting for what you believe in, those are qualities we all have inside us. These women, whether it's Boudica, Pavlichenko, or Lakshmibai, they faced these unbelievable challenges, but they never gave up. They kept going, adapted to the situation, and left their mark on the world.
It's inspiring to think about. All these women from different times and places, all connected by their courage and their refusal to let others define them.
It's a powerful message.
Their stories challenge us to be our best selves, to stand up for what's right, and to never underestimate the power we have to overcome any obstacle.
And we've only just scratched the surface here. I encourage everyone listening to dig deeper into these women's lives. Their stories are full of amazing details, historical context, and lessons that are still relevant today.
Yeah, if any of these warriors caught your attention, definitely go learn more about them. You might be surprised by what you find out, not just about them, but about yourself.
That's what's so great about history, right?
Yeah. And that's it for our deep dive into the world of women warriors throughout history. Until next time, keep exploring.